This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous good-looking friends. African Parks is back in the news as it announces its first batch of rhinos that are going to be rewilded back into the conservation. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, in September of 2023, African Parks purchased the world's largest captive rhino breeding operation. John Hume's Platinum Rhino Farm was facing financial collapse. The initiative's main objective is to rewild all the rhinos to well-managed and secure protected areas, thereby establishing or supplementing strategic populations and ultimately helping to de-risk the species' future. On paper, it all sounds great. This has now begun its first phase in which 40 of these rhinos have been transported to the Manyawana Conservancy. While the website and the PR pieces that have come out make it look like this is a really noble, honorable effort, it most likely might not be all what it seems. If you haven't seen my videos that I've done on African parks and the new colonialism called green colonialism, please check it out. As I've stated in the past, this so-called conservation work that they are doing is really, in essence, green colonialism. And the connection with Harry's business and Travelers does make it appear that the lands are going to be exploited and the indigenous people will be eventually forced off of the land as a result of this green colonialism, aka in the name of conservation. This project that's going to be rolled out over the next 10 years might be the worst thing to happen to these people. I hope that's not the case, but 7 months ago, independent news organization Field Sports Britain reported on the dangers of going ahead with this plan. Here's what they had to say. Back in October of 2023.
US wildlife charity African Parks, which has Prince Harry as its president, has now acquired John Hume's rhinos and plans to release them in parks it manages across Africa. Stephen Palos from South Africa's Sustainable Use Coalition says this could be a recipe for disaster.
My opinion on this is that what they're doing is they're repeating what I consider to be an already proven failed experiment. And it is experimental. That herd of John's, over 2,000 animals now, was probably the most secure nucleus of rhinoceros, certainly the southern white rhinoceros and the black rhinoceros that exists. He's proven by sheer the numbers of increment of his herd that it works. He put himself in a very safe place in South Africa. He spent a lot of money to relocate from his farm near the borders of South Africa in a really bushy and mountainous terrain, and brought that entire operation up to the central heartland of South Africa, to very flat terrain, far away from border risks and things like that. And he's just been increasing those rhino numbers, and I believe his own horn stockpile, for the decade or so he's been in the new location. Converse to that, if you look at the Kenyan model, on their watch, coincidentally also 1977, they put a total ban in any type of utilization in the form of hunting and of any wildlife. And they hung their hat completely on non-consumptive ecotourism, phototourism. And they've managed to bring the northern white rhino to the point that it is now functionally extinct. They've managed to see the rest of their wildlife and game populations also crash in that period of time. I have a lot of respect for African Parks. It's an organization that I think is well led and well premised on much of what they do, and obviously tremendously well supported by famously wealthy individuals. But the rhinoceros is a different thing. You start taking that herd of Johns and spreading it around various parts of Africa. He was spending, I understand, 1 million South African rand a month on security, which, divide that by roughly 22 to get it into pounds, it's a lot of money. If you start spreading that all over the place, and you have to start now securing them in pockets all over, the unit cost of the protection of those rhinos is going to go through the roof. But that's not the scary part. The only way you can do that in the current regime in most of Africa is by fortress conservation methods, which means you put fences between the animals and the population, and you arm and train people to become defenders, and you pay huge amounts of money to them for doing that. It's going to cost human life. That is an absolute fact. In countries like that, you can only defend those rhinos with a militia. and you will be up against a militia. So rhinos are going to die because some will slip through the cracks. People are going to die because it is going to be a war. Money is going to be wasted. I don't see the logic of that. It's the old saying about doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome.
African Park's website has lots of details about its planned release project. We asked African Parks for more on how it plans to stop the poachers. How much extra budget will it put into anti-poaching? And we asked African Parks to address the fear that the temptation of rhino horn could lead to human death, either of poachers or rangers or both. They did not send us a comment.
Is anybody surprised that African Parks didn't respond back to this news outlet? I'm not. But in any case, do we think that African Parks will have the facilities and the security to be able to take care of this? I mean, we already know that they have these armed militiamen who are beating and raping the Baka people and taking advantage of them. But do these conservation parks have the proper security technology? Apparently they don't. Here's what one small rhino ranch had to say about this.
This is the security hub at another smaller rhino ranch. Without this, the owner there says he will lose rhinos to poachers.
Fortunately, we can employ much different strategies than the national parks can, and because we can intensify our efforts, we had no incidences of poaching for the last 7 years.
It's an ambitious project, but only time will tell how successful it will be. No doubt that there will be scandal and controversy along the way, as we have witnessed so many times over, that there will be no accountability or justice for the people that are caught up in this suffering and human rights violations. I'd like to end this video with this blind item in which it says here, "The head of this foreign charity that is under fire tried multiple times without success to get a meeting with the ginger-haired one to discuss what steps should be taken. The ginger-haired one has washed his hands of the whole thing and pretends he was never a part of it." No surprises there. This just shows you the type of person or lack of character that Harry and Meghan both have when it comes to being so-called humanitarians. When it's time to step up and actually use your voice, all of a sudden they somehow have lost it. Look, I know we're sick of talking about Harry and Meghan, but I think it's important because they really shine a light on the scumbags that exist in this world. These globalists really are corrupt to the core, and all this suffering and human rights violations and them trying to be humanitarians and save the planet is all bullshit. Because at the end of the day, the reason why they're doing this is to line their own pockets. And when the going gets tough and they have to face some type of accountability, they run like little bitches and hide. And this is what we see exactly with Meghan and Harry. Do you think Harry could step up and be a man and denounce what African Parks is doing to the Baka people? No, because he's a hypocrite and he really doesn't give a shit about people. All he really cares about is lining his own pocket. Anyhow, I just wanted to put this on everybody's radar because this transportation has just begun with these 40 rhinos. And I'm sure at some point, Meghan and Harry, particularly Harry's going to use this movement of these rhinos in this rewilding program to promote himself. So no doubt that there will be propaganda everywhere celebrating Harry for being a champion and, making the rhino not go extinct anymore. I mean, he's going to probably be made out to be the next white savior, if you haven't gotten that impression yet. But in any case, I thought that this would be important to explain, no, this may not be a good thing, and this could bring more misery onto the people on the lands. And that's what I want you to take away from this video. The other thing that I want you to take away from this video is today I had the opportunity to make it to one of the Sean Atwood Royal Mess lives, and I was able to take a break and I jumped in to watch about an hour in, and I was really happy that there was conversation surrounding the things that I've been recently talking about. The suspicion around Harry and Meghan going to Nigeria for a different purpose. It wasn't so much for Invictus, but had something more to do with what is going on here in the United States and partnerships that are being developed with Nigeria and the money surrounding that. So, if you're interested, definitely go check it out. The conversation and dialogue I thought was excellent. People I literally started to see people like putting two and two together and the light bulbs going on, which once you start seeing it, you can't stop. So I highly recommend you check it out. But that's really all I have for you today. As you know, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
I was such a fraud.